Should is probably a word that guided a lot of your life, just like it guided mine. You should build a career. You should build a family. You should have a life that you think is stable. But maybe that word should has showed up again, this time whispering, you should stop drinking. Alcohol is threatening everything you've built. For me, that was 27 years ago, and I did stop. But moving from just not drinking to living a truly authentic, fulfilling life, what I call your second act, was anything but easy. I thought I could do it alone, that my willpower, which served me so well in my life's first act, would be enough. I was wrong. And if you're feeling that isolation, that same struggle, believing you have to be a lone wolf to beat this, then this video is for you. I'm Dr. Donald Crow, and welcome to Second Act Sobriety, where we explore how to live your best life in recovery. Today, we're diving into the surprising power of community in getting sober, and staying that way. Because what I once thought was a weakness, relying on others, turned out to be one of the greatest miracles in my life. For years, I approached my drinking like everything else in my life, through sheer willpower. I thought it best my alcohol problem remain a secret, something that was best managed alone. I told myself that isolation would bring focus to my efforts to change, but instead, it kept me trapped. My life eventually unraveled, forcing a change on me I couldn't achieve on my own. One day, I woke up in a treatment center, and there, something truly unexpected occurred. I was surrounded by strangers, individuals who seemed nothing like me, except they all had failed to solve their alcohol problems alone. This was the beginning of my sobriety journey, now spanning nearly 3 decades. And I found that once I stopped struggling to go it alone, the journey became easier for so many unexpected reasons. Today I'll share some of the profound ways being among others transformed my path. In those first brutal days of abstinence, when your body is shedding the toxin and your physiology is screaming, the discomfort is oppressive. For me, those physical symptoms were intense for the first week. I found that simply being around other people and sharing a common space took my mind off the alarm bells my body was sounding. It was simply a distraction, a significant benefit that I didn't even recognize at the time. In treatment, I knew I needed to use the opportunity to change. And a change for me has always involved a carrot and a stick, the stick being my consequences. And before treatment, my stick was already huge, the looming loss of my career, freedom, relationships, and health. But seeing the consequences of my fellows certainly strengthened that stick for me. But the carrot, the reason to get sober, the promise of a better life, felt vague and hypothetical. Then I met others who had weeks, months, or even years of sobriety, and they shared little tidbits of what their lives were like now. It sounded good, and they talked about benefits I hadn't even considered. Suddenly, the carrot that sobriety dangled in front of me was no longer abstract. It was real, tangible, and incredibly appealing. Being around people who had been sober for a while and had begun to see its benefits gave me something that I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. This hope inspired me to keep making those uncomfortable changes. I soon realized that being among other people in treatment was somewhat like being in a classroom if I allowed myself to become the student. I quickly learned that my obstacles to sobriety were not unique. My shame about not controlling my drinking, the frustration of not being able to fix myself with the tools I had used to successfully build my first act. These were present in others too. And knowing that others faced the same turmoil was incredibly comforting. I had assumed that my problem stemmed from weakness, that I was somehow deficient or had a character flaw. But in looking at those around me who were at the top of their game professionally, incredibly disciplined people, and I came to understand that we weren't people failing to win a war against alcohol. We were individuals with a medical condition, with stereotypical signs and symptoms just like any other disease. And this reframed everything. There was no longer any reason to feel ashamed. I didn't choose this condition. I didn't cause it. And this allowed me to open up to the possibility of trying something completely new instead of simply trying harder. And importantly, the people around me showed me that simply not drinking wasn't the final goal. It was a necessary prerequisite to reach the real destination, a life worth living, moving forward into your second act. Unfortunately, this community also taught me some harsher lessons. I attended the memorial service of someone I met in treatment. He had 3 months sober and been discharged, full of confidence. But 2 weeks later, he was dead. This was a powerful cautionary tale showing me that not drinking alone was not the final destination, and no guarantee of survival without continued effort. It seems my fellows taught me not only what to do, but what not to do. After my discharge, I was, of course, separated from that initial group. I had resisted them at first, and now I felt deeply appreciative and relied on them. My high-priced treatment center suggested I go to Alcoholics Anonymous. Honestly, parts of AA clashed with my personal beliefs, especially the spiritual or God thing, as we called it. Nevertheless, when I timidly walked into my first AA meeting, I did feel welcome, and I began experiencing some of the same benefits I had discovered in the treatment center. I eventually came to believe that AA was comprised of people who were nothing like me, but exactly the same. Their consequences were often far worse, but sometimes they were milder than mine. Yet they all shared a knowing smile when I talked about the frustration of not being able to stop drinking on my own. And they laughed with me at the absurdity of it all. They all seemed to stay sober in the same way, except completely differently. Those who had found lasting sobriety spoke of being different men and women now. But how they got there was radically different, each emphasizing different components of the change. Yes, the 12 steps were a common theme, but if you asked a dozen people in AA what the steps meant, you'd get a dozen different answers. But everyone there was engaged in the process of pursuing a life that was worth living. And after all, that's why I was there. I once thought that getting sober could only be done alone, and was safest done alone. But I've come to appreciate that trudging down the road day after day to a life of freedom, a real life unadulterated by drugs or alcohol, a life chosen without regret, is simply the better way. And approaching this destination has been infinitely easier and a hell of a lot more fun when I am among my fellow travelers. I've learned to accept help, and I've had the privilege of occasionally helping others who started this journey after me. So if you think alcohol might be a problem for you, or you're convinced that it is, whether you're just contemplating stopping or have already begun the process, I encourage you, don't do it alone, even though your brain tells you you must. Remember, it has lied to you about other things as well. Thanks for watching. I'm Dr. Donald Crow, and the channel is Second Act Sobriety. If these ideas resonated with you, please subscribe so we can grow this channel. Check out these videos, and please comment below. I read all the comments, and I often use them as topics for future videos. And remember, getting sober isn't about giving up anything real. It's about getting the life you want. I'll see you in the next one.